Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the fact that gaining muscle, which means gaining strength, is a slow process. And I think what throws a lot of people off, you get people who they get over on a good novice program and they see their numbers climb. They see that first 10 pounds of muscle come on, and people start getting these ideas in their head, especially if they've ran really bad training for a while and they didn't get gains, and then they start onto some sort of novice LV program, and then all of a sudden, especially if they throw in a little arm work and stuff, they're like, wow, I made in 6 months the like amazing gains, more than I made in the last year doing other goof off stuff, right? They do this, and and people put on that first 10 pounds of real muscle, which comes from progressively overloading, with moderately high volumes, on the big barbell movements when they do something like this. And they're like, wow, I put on 10 pounds of muscle in this period. My squat went up 100 pounds, my deadlift went up 100 pounds, my bench went up 60 pounds. So this is just going to last forever. They're in that honeymoon phase, they're in that novice period. And and gains are not really that slow then, although they are, aren't they? Because the first month or so training, you're probably not gaining much true muscle tissue. And people have to remember that you're gaining a lot of transient storage factors, which means you hold glycogen and water in your muscles. You're gaining neuromuscular efficiency, all this stuff. So the gains seem to come even faster. But when we talk about when you get out of that phase, you're not going to gain 10 pounds of muscle in a year ever again. When we start getting more advanced, you get through the novice phase, sometimes you're going to struggle to gain 3 pounds of real muscle in a year, of real muscle. I'm not talking about temporary swelling that comes from too much pump training or too much volume, really. Because we could talk about that, but that's not real muscle growth, is it? It's temporary. It's fleeting. It doesn't stay. Particularly people who are doing 20 plus sets a week for a muscle group, and they get all that pump from it, and then they feel like they're bigger, but it's just a lot of that is temporary swelling, and within a couple of weeks it would go away. So as soon as you cut that training style out, that goes away. We're talking here about gaining myofibrillar growth. We're talking about tissue fibers, the protein in your muscles actually getting thicker. This is where you get hard, dense muscle. And, that's been pointed out too, that you'll see some of the experts point out. I've seen everyone from Minnow Hanselman to Lyle McDonald point that out. Looking at the research, they're like, look, there's a difference between looking like a puffy bodybuilder even when you're lean versus looking hard. And they're like, the training does matter there. Real muscle growth, if you don't carry a lot of excess water with it. And there are certain substances people take that give them that look. So the guys who do really, really high volume training and take a lot of growth hormone, notice even when they're lean, they look real watery. There's a specific look to those guys. And you can figure out what experts do it. I won't name names. Some are very popular actual experts with credentials who look like that. But they don't look hard at a low body fat, do they? They have a certain soft look. So we're talking about having real muscle, which is not going to be certain substances combined with really high volume training making your muscles hold more water and glycogen. We're talking about real muscle tissue. So that actually guys who have a lot of myofibrillar growth and not all that look really chiseled and hard, even if they're carb depleted and things. Muscle growth takes time, and it is that myofibrillar growth that gives us strength. That's where we get stronger, because that was noticed too in the research. People, they looked at bodybuilders, and when you don't look at the water and you just look at the cross-sectional area of the muscle fibers, even bodybuilders are just as strong as powerlifters as far as force production when that muscle's contracted. So it's been looked at. Just keeping in mind, it's only the cross-sectional area of the actual muscle fibers. Okay, the muscle fibers are what make you stronger. And again, it's a harder tissue. And it looks harder when someone's real lean. I'm not real lean in these up here above. This is, some old footage. I've been dieting, but not super lean yet. But you can start to see that under there. But the point is, it takes a long time to build that. You can get temporary pump look very quickly. But it's not muscle growth. And guys get this idea that because the noob gains come quick, that all of a sudden they can replicate that. And you can't. You're going to have to be patient. And I'll be honest with a lot of you. To get really close to your potential, it's going to take you 10 years of hard training. Okay? And that's just being honest. And people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear, 10 years to get near my potential? Yeah, and that's what I find. I used to say years ago guys could get, 90% of it in 3 to 5 years. The longer I look, I don't think that's the case. Because there's a big difference between guys who've been training hard for 4 or 5 years versus guys who've been training hard for 10 years. There's a difference. There's a difference in oftentimes their strength, their size, their muscle quality. Okay, it takes a long time to really start maximizing that potential. And here's what else I'll say. As far as the 10 years thing goes, that means you get close. I have friends who are beasts, by the way, who at 25 years of nonstop training, because I had to take a break in my training. People forget that. They're like, you've been training this many years. No, I haven't. I spent a year in bed sick in my early 30s and 3.5 years without doing any lifting per medical orders. Okay, so I kind of rebuilt from nothing. I couldn't even walk. So I rebuilt from that, starting about, 11 or 12 years ago. And that's how long it's taken me to get to where I am. People were kind of like, well, how come you got stronger? You've been doing YouTube or whatever, 6 years, and then, in your 40s, you got even stronger on certain lifts, and it's because I'd only been training again for 5 or 6, 7 years. Those extra years accumulate. They matter. They matter. Okay? And that's why I'm still going to continue to get stronger up into my mid-40s again. Because it takes time. It takes patience. But, back to my other friend. Like some of my friends like Nicola Ella. 25 years of hard, heavy training. And the guy is just an absolute beast. Absolute beast. And he's a drug-free guy, and he's just a monster. But he's continued to make small amounts of progress every single year. So he's kind of like, if every year I can gain half a pound of muscle and put, 5 pounds on my squat and deadlift, I've made progress. It's playing the long game. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.